The gunshot echoed across my ranch like a thunderclap. Blood pooled under my dog's golden fur as the HOA president smirked over him, broken stick in hand. I never wanted to pull that trigger, but when he left, something snapped. Now the sheriff's interrogating me, my neighbors are screaming for blood, and security footage proves he trespassed first. But none of that matters, because in 48 hours, they'll charge me with attempted murder, and I'll have to confess what really happened. But before you decide if I'm a hero or criminal, let me show you the evidence they don't want you to see. My name is Matthew Walker. Folks around here just call me Matt. I'm 45 years old, a retired Marine, and proud owner of a 60-acre ranch outside of town. I moved out here to get peace and quiet, raise chickens, work on my vintage truck, live out the rest of my days surrounded by the sound of crickets and the smell of fresh hay. I didn't ask for drama, but drama sure came knocking. It started with a letter, fancy one, cream-colored paper, gold seal, stamped urgent. I opened it while sipping my morning coffee and scratching Bear's ears. Bear still whimpers when it rains remnants of the hurricane I pulled him from. Now this suit anti-storm was about to leave him bleeding in my arms. Dear resident, it read, your property has recently been reviewed and is found to be in breach of HOA compliance standards. Please contact the board to schedule a corrective inspection. I blinked at it, laughed, then tossed it in the trash. See, my ranch sits outside the boundary of Rosewood Hills Estates. I checked that carefully before I bought the place 3 years ago. That HOA doesn't control my land. They've got no say over what I build, grow, or park. But the letters kept coming, and then the visits started. First, it was Karen. Yes, her real name. Karen Thompson, president of the HOA before Jeffrey snatched the title from her last fall. She pulled up in her silver Lexus one Saturday morning, dressed like she was heading to a tennis match. Visor, sunglasses, even the little white wristband. She didn't smile. You have unapproved structures on your land, she said through the fence. I sipped my coffee and said, this ain't HOA land, ma'am. She squinted at me like I just barked in Latin. You're within our expanding jurisdiction. The board voted. We filed annexation papers with the county. I chuckled. The county says otherwise. I checked. Karen didn't like that answer. She left in a huff, tires kicking dust all the way down the road. But as she drove off, her eyes lingered on Bear like a contractor eyeing a condemned house. Next week, she came back with Jeffrey. Now Jeffrey Hammond was a whole other level of trouble. Slick hair, polished loafers, the kind of man who thought he owned the sun because it rose when he did. He leaned on my gate like it was his. Matt, we're going to be neighbors whether you like it or not. You can either play ball or be removed. I said, you step foot on my land without permission again, you'll meet my dog, and if that don't work, you'll meet my gun. He smirked. Threats don't scare me. That was the first time I saw him look past me, eyes narrowing at Bear, who stood behind me, wagging his tail. His stare held the cold calculation of a predator sizing up prey. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. I spent my days mending fences, tending to my small garden, and fixing up an old barn I wanted to turn into a workshop. Bear followed me everywhere. He's been with me since he was a pup. Bear's been through hell and high water with me that dogs seem combat zones and hurricane shelters, but nothing prepared either of us for the suburban warfare. Then one Thursday morning, I noticed tire tracks where there shouldn't be any. Deep ones, fresh, leading all the way to the edge of my property by the east field. It was odd because I'd locked the gate. I always locked the gate. I walked the perimeter and found the chain cut clean. That's when my stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. That evening, as the sun dipped low and orange across the hills, Bear started growling at the woods behind the house. Low and deep like he only did when something was wrong. I grabbed my flashlight and my rifle. Stay close, I told him. We circled the fence line. I didn't see anything at first but the barn door. It was open. I never leave that barn door open. Inside, I found broken tools, fresh footprints in the hay, and something even worse. Bear's bed slashed and soaked in a dark fluid that looked like motor oil. I filed a report with the sheriff next morning. Could be kids, the deputy said, or trespassers. I told him I suspected the HOA. He frowned but wrote it down. Then he leaned in and whispered, "Watch your back, Matt. Some of them Rosewood folks don't play fair." I didn't sleep much that night. 2 nights later, everything exploded. I just stepped out onto the porch with a glass of sweet tea when I heard the yelp. "Hi, Sharp. Bear." I dropped the glass and ran. Found Bear curled up near the barn, blood on his side, and Jeffrey standing over him with a stick. No, it wasn't just a stick. It was a broken broom handle, splintered with red staining the tip. "What the hell did you do?" I screamed. Jeffrey turned, calm as a corpse. "I told you you'd be removed one way or another." That's when I raised the rifle. That's when I fired. That's when everything changed. And that's exactly where the trouble really begins. But what happened next would make the sheriff handcuff Karen, but not before she whispered 3 words that changed everything. The silence after the gunshot felt louder than the blast itself. Jeffrey dropped to the dirt, groaning and cursing. One hand clutching his shoulder where the bullet had hit, the other clawing at the air like he still had control. But in that moment, he didn't. Not anymore. I lowered the rifle, heart racing, sweat dripping down my back. Bear whimpered beside me. I dropped to my knees and ran my hands gently over his side. Blood matted his golden fur, and he flinched when I touched near his ribs. His breathing was shallow but steady. "You're okay, buddy," I whispered. "Stay with me." Jeffrey was still yelling. "You lunatic. You shot me. I'll ruin you. Do you know who I am?" I stood up, eyes locked on him. "Yeah, I know exactly who you are. You're a trespasser who hurt my dog." Then I walked back to the porch and called 911. Not for him, for Bear. Deputies arrived first, lights flashing across the field. Then came the ambulance for Jeffrey. He was loaded up onto a stretcher, still yelling threats as they hauled him off. I kept repeating, "He hurt my dog," through gritted teeth, the coppery smell of Bear's blood still crusted under my nails. One of the deputies, Officer Daniels, nodded along. He was an old friend from town, knew me from my Marine days. Trustworthy. "You've got cameras, Matt?" he asked. "3, I said. "One facing the barn, one on the porch, one over the gate. Save the footage. We'll need it." Then he lowered his voice. For what it's worth, he's been poking around places he doesn't belong. "This ain't the first complaint we've had." I nodded, but my mind wasn't on Jeffrey. It was on Bear. The vet came out to the ranch after I called her. Doc Harris was the best in town. She examined Bear right there on the porch under the soft glow of a lantern. "He's lucky," she said. "The injury isn't deep, more bruising than puncture, but it was deliberate. Someone hit him hard with a blunt object." I clenched my fists. "Will he be okay?" "With rest and care, yes." That was the only thing that gave me peace that night. The next morning, everything exploded online. I hadn't even opened my eyes yet when my phone buzzed a dozen times. My neighbor Carla called me first. "Matt, check Facebook. Your name's all over the Rosewood HOA group." I groaned. "Why am I even on their radar?" "You shot the president of the HOA, Matt. You're basically front page news." I sat up, opened the app, and scrolled. There it was. A post from someone named Brenda Fox, one of Karen's close friends. "Attention, Ranch Lunatic shoots our beloved HOA president. We need to remove this danger from our community ASAP. Who knows what he'll do next?" Hundreds of angry comments followed. "He should be jailed. Why is he living so close to us anyway? Isn't he some kind of ex-military nut job?" That last one stung more than I'd admit. But then I saw a different post. This one from Mike Turner, a mechanic and longtime friend. "Before y'all judge, maybe ask why the HOA president was trespassing on private land and why a sweet dog ended up at the vet." And slowly, The tone started to shift. More people chimed in. I saw that HOA guy throw trash on Matt's driveway last month. Matt's the kindest man I know. He gives free eggs to the school kitchen. My daughter volunteers at the vet clinic. She said Matt's dog was nearly killed. Still, it didn't stop what came next. 3 days later, I was served. A lawsuit. Jeffrey, even from his hospital bed, wasn't done with me. His attorney sent over a 42-page claim accusing me of aggravated assault, endangerment, defamation, and emotional trauma. I handed the papers to my lawyer, Doug Simmons. Doug raised his eyebrows. This is ridiculous. You think we'll win? Absolutely. If we handle this right, do you have the footage? I've got everything. He leaned back and smiled. Then we'll make sure the jury does too. But winning the court case wasn't my only concern. My name was already mud in certain circles. And Karen, she was stirring the pot. She called for a community meeting, an emergency HOA vote. She wanted the board to officially condemn the dangerous behavior of the man on the outskirts. Outskirts. That was me. So I went. Yeah, I wasn't planning to, but something in me said I had to face them head on. I put on my best boots, pressed a clean flannel, and walked right into the Rosewood Hills clubhouse that Saturday. The room went quiet when I stepped in. Every chair was filled. Karen stood at the podium. Jeffrey's chair sat empty beside her, though his bandaged face grinned at me from a giant blown-up picture on the projector. Karen's voice was all sugar and poison. We must ask ourselves, what kind of neighbor shoots someone during a simple misunderstanding? What kind of man brings violence into our peaceful community? I raised my hand. She ignored it. I propose a formal blacklisting. He should be denied access to shared community roads, water hookups, and trash services until further notice. My hand went up again. Someone finally said, "Let him speak." So I did. Calm, steady. I didn't come here to beg. I came to warn you. Jeffrey Hammond trespassed. He attacked my dog. I protected my land and family. If any of you think that makes me the villain, maybe you've been following the wrong leaders. Gasps, a few nods, some muttered curses. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. But then a woman stood up in the back. It was Sandra Hayes, widow, former teacher. Quiet but respected. She said, I saw Jeffrey walking toward Matt's property with a stick that day. I was watering my flowers. I didn't know what he was doing, but it didn't look right. The room shifted. Karen sputtered. That's irrelevant. Sandra held her ground. No, Karen. What's irrelevant is this witch hunt. I say we stop and wait for the law to speak before we ruin another neighbor. The vote ended in a draw. Blacklisting failed. But I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. That night, I sat on the porch again. Bear lay next to me, his head resting on my boot. His side was healing but slowly. The bruises made my blood boil every time I saw them. The stars were out. Crickets chirped. And then I saw it. A car, no headlights, crawling down the gravel road toward my barn. Someone was back again, trespassing. And this time, they weren't alone. I grabbed my rifle and headed out into the dark, my heart pounding louder with every step. Because whoever it was, they weren't coming to talk. They were coming to finish something. And so was I. The car's engine cut off just as I reached the edge of the barn. Silence. No headlights, no door slam, just the creak of something heavy shifting inside the shadows. I crouched low and raised my rifle, eyes scanning the trees. Bear was still back at the porch, tied gently to a post. He was healing. I couldn't handle another scare. Not yet. Then I saw them. 2 figures dressed in black, hooded. One held what looked like a crowbar. The other had a flashlight taped to the barrel of a long object, too slim for a tool, too careful in its movement. It was a gun. They moved toward my workshop door, whispering. I stepped out from behind the shed and cocked the rifle loudly. Wrong property. They froze. One turned, flashlight flickering in my direction. You're trespassing, I said. That's strike 1. The one with the crowbar raised it halfway. We're not here to hurt you, man. Good, I replied, because I will hurt you if you take one more step. The one with the gun lowered it slowly but didn't drop it. We were sent, he said, by someone who doesn't want your kind in this neighborhood. I narrowed my eyes. You mean veterans, dog lovers, or maybe just men who won't back down to bullies? Neither of them answered. Get in your car and drive away, I said, before I make this a bigger problem than it already is. They hesitated, then turned and ran. I didn't follow, but I got a good look at the license plate as they sped off. And that's when I realized something much worse was happening than I thought. This wasn't just about HOA rules. This was personal. The next day, I drove to the sheriff's office and gave them the plate number. Sheriff Morales looked up from his desk and leaned back. That's registered to Karen Thompson's nephew. I felt the heat rise in my neck. You're kidding. Wish I was. Seems like Jeffrey and Karen are pulling strings behind the scenes, trying to scare you off. Is that enough to press charges? He sighed. Not unless they actually break something or hurt someone. We can't prove intent with shadows and scare tactics. But he leaned in closer, voice low. Keep your cameras rolling because they're not done yet. Back at the ranch, I added 2 more cameras, one by the back fence, one above the barn loft. I wired them into a hard drive and set alerts for motion detection. I wasn't going to be caught off guard again. Meanwhile, Doug, my lawyer, called with an update. Jeffrey's team is pushing for a restraining order, claiming you're a threat. He trespassed, I snapped. He hurt my dog. I know, Matt, but their game is smoke and mirrors. He's trying to make you look like a violent loner who snapped. He wants to shift the public eye off his own actions. I exhaled. What do? We counter with video. The footage from your barn camera is solid gold. The moment Bear's yelp hits the audio and Jeffrey raises that stick, it's clear as day. You acted in defense. Then let's go public, I said. Let the people see the truth. Doug paused. That might work. I uploaded a 90-second video to my ranch's Facebook page that night. No voiceover, no music, just raw footage. Jeffrey approaching Bear, the stick swinging, Bear's cry, my yell, the gunshot. I titled it The Truth About What Happened on My Ranch. Within 2 hours, it had 10,000 views. By morning, it hit 75,000. People started sharing it everywhere. Why isn't he in jail? Free Matt Walker. Justice for Bear. The tide turned fast. Even local news stations reached out for interviews. I turned them down. I didn't want to be a celebrity. I just wanted peace. But the truth was out now, and it was burning through the lies like wildfire. Karen, meanwhile, lost her mind online. She posted a rant on the HOA board page. This is a witch hunt against our leadership. Do not believe these edited videos. That man is a danger to all of us. But no one was buying it anymore. Too many people had seen what she and Jeffrey tried to hide. Just as things were settling, something even stranger happened. I got a call from someone unexpected. Matt Walker, the voice asked, Yes, this is Linda Hammond, Jeffrey's wife. I sat upright in my chair. What can I do for you, ma'am? I need to talk to you, not as an enemy, but as someone who's been silent for too long. There was a long pause. I know what my husband did. I know this isn't the first time. That sentence knocked the wind out of me. You want to come forward? I asked. I'm ready, but I need to be careful. He has money, lawyers, and friends on the inside. You're saying he's done this before? Yes, she whispered. And worse. He's bullied other residents, too. Forced a widow out of her home. Threatened a young family over a swing set. But this time, he messed with the wrong man. I swallowed. I need your statement. Can I record you? I'll meet you. Discreetly. Where? There's an old diner just off County Line Road. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. The next day, I showed up early, sat in the corner booth with coffee and a notepad. Linda arrived right on time. Dark sunglasses, blazer, hair tied back. She looked tired, like she'd aged 20 years in the last 2 weeks. She slid into the booth and said, "I only have 30 minutes." Then she gave me everything: dates, times, incidents, people Jeffrey harassed, HOA votes he manipulated, bribes, coercion. I recorded the entire thing. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "I hope you burn him down." I nodded slowly. I won't let him do this to anyone else. I walked out of that diner with more than just a recording. I walked out with the match that could finally burn down this corrupt little kingdom of theirs. But just as I reached my truck, my phone buzzed with an alert from the ranch. Motion detected. Front porch camera. I tapped the feed open. What I saw made my blood run cold. Karen standing on my porch, holding Bear. Not petting, not helping, just holding him by the collar, drugging him. She looked straight into the camera and smiled, then mouthed two words. "Your move." But when I untied Bear's muzzle, a note fell out with coordinates to a shallow grave and a date stamp from 3 days before I pulled the trigger. I barely remember the drive home. All I saw was Bear, his collar gripped in Karen's painted fingers, her lips curling in that smug slow motion smile like she'd won. Like she had me now, but she didn't know me. And she damn sure didn't know Bear. I hit the gravel road so hard the dust cloud behind me could have blinded a train. My tire skidded as I tore through the gate and flew up the driveway. The porch was empty. No Karen, no Bear. I jumped out of the truck. I didn't even close the door. "Bear," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Bear, come." Silence. The porch light flickered. The only sound was the engine cooling and the wind stirring the trees. Then, from the direction of the barn, I heard a bark, weak but familiar. I sprinted across the yard, boots hammering dirt. I found Bear tied to the inside of the barn, his leash wrapped around a beam, his muzzle duct taped shut. He was shaking but alive, terrified. I dropped to my knees and tore the tape off his face. "I got you, buddy. I'm here. I got you." He whimpered, then licked my hand. That was when I saw it. A flash drive duct taped to his leash. I peeled it off. No label, just the cold metallic edge of something that promised more darkness inside. Back in the house, I fed Bear, checked him for wounds, just some bruises on his paws, probably from being dragged or yanked around. He stayed by my side like glue. I slipped the flash drive into my laptop, not sure what I was about to find. What I saw froze the blood in my veins. It was surveillance footage of me, not from my cameras, but of me walking around my house, doing chores, feeding chickens, mowing the back field, from different angles, from trees, bushes, fence posts. Someone had been spying on me, and it wasn't just from the past week. Some of the timestamps went back months. There was even a clip of me training Bear just days before Jeffrey got hurt. Another of me cleaning my rifle. And another, worse, me in the kitchen at night, shirtless, drinking water, shot through the window. That's when I knew this wasn't about HOA rules anymore. This was obsession, targeting, hunting. I immediately copied the files and emailed them to Doug, my lawyer, with the subject, "We need to escalate immediately." The next morning, Doug called, "Matt, this changes everything." No kidding. This isn't a civil case anymore. This is harassment, stalking, possibly criminal conspiracy. I've already flagged this to the sheriff's office and the county prosecutor. What about Karen? She's more involved than we thought. I think Jeffrey is just the face. She's the puppet master. I clenched my jaw. She took my dog, tied him up, muzzled him like an animal. "She is an animal," Doug said, "and we're going to cage her." Later that day, Officer Daniels and Sheriff Morales both showed up at my ranch. I handed them the flash drive in person, gave them copies of the camera footage, and showed them the broken leash and bruises on Bear's legs. Morales looked down at Bear, who stood protectively between us, still trembling, and his face changed. His jaw tightened, eyes narrowed. "That's enough," the sheriff said. "We're issuing a search warrant for Karen Thompson's home. I'll get the judge on the phone tonight." Daniels added, And for the record, we believe you now. Every bit of it. That night, I couldn't sleep, not out of fear, but out of fury. I sat on the porch with Bear beside me, a rifle leaning against the chair, and a thermos of black coffee in my hand. I stared out into the dark fields, waiting for headlights or footsteps, the click of a camera lens. But the night stayed still, too still, until around 2:11 a.m. The power went out all at once. The porch light, the barn, the house, everything gone. And then a motion alert, back fence camera. I pulled my phone up. Two figures, hooded again. But this time they were carrying gasoline cans. They moved toward the barn, one pulling out a lighter and flicking it. I didn't wait. I stormed down the steps with my rifle slung across my back, night vision goggles from my old Marine days already strapped to my face. I reached the barn and shouted, "Drop the cans now." They scattered like rats, but not fast enough. I tackled the one with the lighter. He hit the ground hard. His hood slipped. It was Karen's son, Jacob. "Seriously?" I yelled. "You trying to burn me out now?" He spat at my boot. "You think you're a hero? You're ruining everything. Get off my land," I growled. "And tell your mother we're just getting started." By dawn, Jacob was in custody. Sheriff Morales personally filed arson charges. And later that day, Karen Thompson was arrested not just for trespassing, not just for conspiracy, but for animal cruelty, harassment, and illegal surveillance. The news hit the town like a thunderclap. HOA president arrested in ranch stalking scandal. The community turned on her overnight. People who once defended her erased their comments, deleted posts, denied ever knowing her well. Jeffrey? He disappeared. No more updates. His name vanished from the HOA roster. And just when I thought we could breathe again, Doug called. "You need to hear this," he said. He sent me a new file, one that Linda, Jeffrey's wife, had found hidden in a cloud storage account. It was labeled Next Target, Walker's Well. I opened the file. Blueprints, drone photos, plans to reroute my water source, cutting me off entirely. And buried in the margins was a name I hadn't heard before. Roger Gates, a state planning officer. And apparently Karen had paid him off to make my land disappear off the official zoning maps. The DA called it justice until the forensic report proved someone else had been pulling Karen's strings all along. They weren't just trying to control me through HOA fines or harassment. They were trying to erase me legally, destroy my land from the inside out by severing my water source, then pressuring the county to devalue the property. It was beyond personal. This was war. I called Doug right away. "This is organized. This isn't just HOA drama. This is corruption," I said, pacing the porch with Bear lying at my feet, licking his healing leg. Doug agreed. "We need to escalate this to the state. I'm calling the Attorney General's office. This goes deeper than we thought." Doug arranged an emergency meeting at the county office for the next morning. But Karen knew. Somehow she always knew when I was making a move. At exactly 11:17 that night, I was in the barn tending to my old mare when I heard the unmistakable hum of a drone overhead. I stepped outside, shining my flashlight into the sky. There it was, small, black, hovering just above the tree lean. Camera pointed directly at my house. I waved my arms, shouted, even chucked a small rock at it. It didn't move. So I went inside, grabbed my flare gun, and fired once, not at the drone, but just high enough to scare it off. It zipped away like a bug in a thunderstorm. The next morning, sure enough, Karen had posted a new complaint online claiming I was firing weapons at the Community Security Patrol drone. She attached a blurry video clip and shared it on the HOA page, stirring her little cult into a frenzy. But that didn't stop me from showing up at the county building the next morning. Doug met me there, folders in hand. We walked into the zoning office, where a group of stone-faced board members sat at a long table. Karen, to my shock, was already there, dressed like she was going to a courtroom drama premiere, wearing a silk scarf and holding a thick binder. She smiled sweetly when she saw me. "Mr. Walker," she cooed. "Lovely to see you again." Doug didn't waste time. She stood and handed copies of the original deed and land grant to the officials. "Here is legal proof that my client's property is private, never under HOA governance, and has protected access rights to the public road." Karen tried to interrupt. "That document is outdated." Doug snapped back. "It is a legally binding county registered land grant, not a newsletter from your neighborhood club." Karen's smile twitched. "We laid out every map, every boundary, every notarized file. And then Doug did something brilliant. She played the drone footage, the one I had filmed of Karen's two men cutting and moving the fence in the dead of night. The whole room watched silently as the video showed them dragging concrete posts across the dirt. Then she showed the maps we found in Karen's flash folder. Not only has Miss Thompson constructed an illegal fence, Doug said, but she's also filed fraudulent documents, harassed a private landowner, attempted to cut power lines, and submitted a rezoning petition based on false information. The head zoning officer, Mr. Rollins, leaned forward. "Miss Thompson, did you submit these maps under your name?" Karen opened her mouth, then closed it again. "I was advised by the board." "We have no record of any board vote on this," Mr. Rollins said firmly. "Your HOA has no jurisdiction over Mr. Walker's property. I'm rejecting the rezoning request effective immediately." Karen gasped. "You can't do that. You don't understand what this means." But she wasn't listening anymore, because Doug pulled out one last file, a cease and desist order signed by the judge earlier that morning. Karen was now legally barred from setting foot on my property, flying drones over it, fencing it, or filing any paperwork regarding it until further notice. I could see the rage building in her face. Her little empire was starting to crack, but deep down, I knew she wasn't finished. I returned to the ranch that afternoon, exhausted but hopeful. With the order in place and the county on our side, I thought things might quiet down. For a while they did. 3 peaceful days passed. The fence was still there, but Karen was gone, laying low, probably plotting. Then on the 4th night, I was sitting on the porch watching stars when I heard it. Boom. The ground shook lightly beneath me. I jumped to my feet and ran toward the barn. Smoke. There was smoke coming from the shed. I sprinted across the yard, kicked the door open, and stopped dead. A pile of hay was ablaze in the corner, flames licking up the sidewall. The fire had just started. I could still beat it. I grabbed the hose, aimed it at the flames, and soaked the wall before it could spread to the barn. After 5 frantic minutes, I put it out. My arms were trembling. My shirt soaked with sweat, but something inside me had changed. This wasn't a property feud anymore. This was arson. Someone had come onto my ranch and tried to burn it down. And there was only one person desperate and angry enough to do it. I turned and saw something half buried in the dirt just a few feet from the shed, part of a gasoline-soaked rag and a torn corner of paper. I picked it up and unfolded it. It was a page from Karen's petition binder. Her name and signature clearly printed on the bottom corner. She'd been here that night, trying to destroy everything. I clenched the paper in my hand. This time I wasn't calling the sheriff. I was calling federal authorities because Karen just took this to a whole new level. That morning, I drove to the county office. I walked in straight and tall, boots thudding on the floor like war drums. At the front desk, I asked for Roger Gates. The receptionist hesitated. "He's not in today." I leaned closer. "Tell him Matt Walker came by and I'll be back with a full file, legal team, and 2 state investigators if I don't see my land's zoning record back in place by Friday." Then I walked out calm and slow. On the way back to my truck, I noticed a camera on a pole facing the lot. Good. Let them see me. That evening, I found something chilling by my gate. A red envelope. Inside was a photo. Bear tied up. From the night Karen snatched him. And behind him, barely visible, was a whiteboard with a date written in thick black marker. 7 days. Nothing else. No sender, no threat, just the ticking of a countdown I didn't understand yet. But I knew this photo wasn't from Karen. It was recent, taken after she got arrested. I installed more lights around the barn, put motion-triggered sprinklers by the field gates, rewired the electric fence. Yes, electric fence. The original rancher had set it up for coyotes years ago, and I'd repaired it after the hurricane. Now, it wasn't just for animals. It was for people. People who thought they could break a man like me. The very next day, things escalated again. I got a call from a reporter, Natalie Verne, from a national news outlet. "I've been covering corrupt HOAs for the last 6 years," she said. "Your case is different. We'd like to come film an interview on the ranch." "I'm not really a camera guy," I told her. "You don't have to be, but someone like you, someone who stood up and fought back, might be what gives other people the courage to do the same." That gave me pause because this whole thing wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the next veteran they try to push out, the next dog they harm, the next land they try to steal. So I said yes. 2 days later, Natalie and her crew arrived with a single camera, drone, and a microphone. They filmed me walking through the property, explaining what happened from the day I got that first HOA letter to the night Karen tied up Bear and left a spy drive on his leash. "I was just trying to live in peace," I told her. "I served my country, worked hard, bought this land fair and square." But peace, that's the one thing people like that don't understand. They want control, order, silence. "What would you say to people watching this who are dealing with their own HOA nightmare?" she asked. I looked right into the lens. I'd say, document everything. Never back down. And if they cross your fence line, you meet them at the gate. The video went viral. Within 24 hours, it racked up over 3.6 million views. Veterans from all over the country sent messages of support. Dog owners, ranchers, even some former HOA members who'd resigned because of abuse of power. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. But the attention came with a price. That night, someone cut the wires to my perimeter lights. I heard the pop as the circuits failed. The camera footage caught it. Two men in ski masks slinking through the trees like shadows. But they didn't expect Bear to be loose that night. He barreled out of the house like a missile, caught one of them before they could clear the fence. The man screamed and dropped a metal box, some kind of jammer meant to knock out my Wi-Fi and motion systems. Bear bit deep into his leg before I called him off. They fled into the woods. I called the sheriff, but when they arrived, the trail had gone cold. Sheriff Morales picked up the jammer. "Military grade," he said. "This ain't kids playing games anymore." That same night, Doug called with an update. "They found emails," he said. "From who?" "Karen to Roger Gates. Bribes, requests to wipe records, and one message that's especially damning." He read it aloud. "If he won't sell, break him. Destroy the land. Remove the dog. Force him into court. No dog, no fight." I gritted my teeth. She said, "Remove the dog." Like Bear was a piece of furniture. By the end of the week, an arrest warrant had been issued for Roger Gates. He tried to flee the state, but was caught at a private airstrip. The headlines were brutal. "State official caught in HOA bribery plot, targeted disabled veterans ranch." I watched the news that night from the porch, Bear's head resting on my lap, the stars glittering above like tiny blades of hope. We weren't done yet, but for the first time in months, we were winning. Then, just as I reached to switch off the TV, another alert popped up on my phone, camera feed, East Gate. And this time, it wasn't someone sneaking through the shadows. It was Jeffrey wearing all black, walking toward my porch, and he was holding a shotgun. The sight of Jeffrey Hammond on my camera feed, dressed in black, gripping a shotgun like a man with nothing left to lose, sent an electric jolt through my chest. He was back. And this time, he wasn't hiding behind Karen or court papers or HOA bylaws. This time, he came with a weapon. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my rifle, checked the safety, and whispered to Bear, "Stay inside." But Bear, loyal to the bone, pressed up beside me, tail low, ears perked, his instincts kicking in like the soldier he'd become by my side. I stepped out onto the porch, calm and steady, just like I'd done back in my military days when the stakes were life and death. The night air was thick, humid, tense. Jeffrey was walking up the gravel path, slow, deliberate, shotgun pointed low but ready. He stopped about 20 feet from my porch. I don't want to shoot you, I said. Jeffrey smirked. You already did once. And I'll do it again if you threaten me or my dog. His eyes narrowed. You think you've won? You humiliated me. You cost me everything. No, you cost yourself everything. The moment you trespassed, the moment you hit my dog, the moment you let your greed turn into obsession. He raised the shotgun just slightly. Not enough to fire, but enough to remind me he could. You ruined my name, he barked. You made me the villain. I didn't make you anything, I said. You did that on your own. We stared each other down in the stillness, not even the crickets daring to make a sound. And then a shout from behind the trees. Drop the gun, Hammond, hands in the air. Blue and red lights lit up the trees like a Christmas warning. Sheriff Morales emerged with a squad of deputies, weapons drawn, moving fast. Jeffrey's head whipped around in shock. How? I raised my phone slowly, showing him the live feed on my screen. I went live, I said simply. Thousands are watching, including the sheriff. Jeffrey spun to run, but he didn't make it 10 feet before two deputies tackled him into the gravel. The shotgun skidded away. Bear barked once, sharp and strong, like a final warning. Justice had just landed. Back at the station, Jeffrey was charged with armed trespass, attempted assault, and conspiracy. The footage of him approaching my house with a weapon went viral again. The town, the county, even the state turned on him. No one came to his defense. Not this time. The HOA board collapsed within days. Members resigned. Others were investigated. Even Karen, already in custody, tried to cut a deal, turning over bank records, burn her phones, even HOA meeting recordings that proved most of their votes were staged, manipulated, or flat out fraudulent. By the time the dust settled, a total of 9 people were charged in connection with what the media started calling the Rosewood Power Ring. I wasn't just a rancher anymore. I was the guy who tore it all down. A week later, Natalie from the news returned. This time, not to film, but to deliver a letter. A young woman from Minnesota had written it. Her husband, also a veteran, had been harassed by his HOA over building a wheelchair ramp. He didn't fight back. He gave up until he saw my story. The letter ended with, "You gave us permission to stand up. You gave us our dignity back. Thank you for showing us that sometimes the right thing is to fight." I folded the letter gently and placed it in the barn right above Bear's bed. Life slowly returned to normal after that. Or at least a new kind of normal. Bear healed. The bruises faded and his tail wagged strong again. I rebuilt the gate Karen's son had tried to torch. Neighbors I'd never spoken to before started bringing pies, dropping off fence posts, even offering free hands when I needed them. And then one early Saturday morning, I woke up to find something new nailed to the old oak by my driveway. A wooden sign carved by hand. It read, "Matt's Ranch, where freedom stands its ground." I left it there because they were right. This land, my land, stood because we refused to bow. Then came the final knock on my door, a quiet one. I opened it to see Sheriff Morales standing there, hat in hand, with a gentle smile. "Got something for you," he said. He handed me a small box. Inside was Bear's original collar. Cleaned, restored. A silver badge now hung from the tag. It read, "Service Animal, Recognized Defender of Property and Life, County Honorary K9. I choked up. Even Bear tilted his head like he knew it meant something big. "He earned it," the sheriff said. "You both did." That night, as I sat on the porch with Bear resting by my boot and a new sun just beginning to rise, I finally allowed myself to breathe easy. The battles had been fought. The land had been protected. Justice had been served. And above all, my best friend was still by my side, alive, free, and ready for whatever came next. Because on this ranch, we don't run. We stand. 3 months passed. The grass grew taller, the skies clearer, and for the first time in a long while, Bear slept through the night without jerking awake at every little noise. The lawsuit dropped, the charges against Jeffrey and his crew upheld. Convictions guilty on all counts. The judge made a powerful statement during sentencing. This wasn't just harassment. This was warfare against an innocent citizen and his companion. The court recognizes the bravery of Mr. Walker and the role his service dog played in defending life and property. That last part made Bear kind of a local celebrity. Kids started drawing him in school. One kid even mailed me a crayon drawing titled, "Bear the Brave Dog Who Beat the Bad Guys." I framed it right above the fireplace. The ranch wasn't quiet for long, though. Freedom never stays still. One morning, I got a call from a retired Air Force pilot named Hank, who lived 2 counties over. He'd seen my interview and wanted help fighting his own HOA that was trying to fine him for flying a U.S. flag too high on his own pool. Another call came from a widow named Elsie. They'd tried to evict her because her porch plants didn't match the HOA's color guide. "I'm not a fighter like you," she said, "but I'm tired of being scared." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about my fight anymore. I had the voice, the story, the platform now. So I started a nonprofit called Stand at the Gate, a legal aid fund for people bullied by HOAs, focused especially on veterans, seniors, and folks living in rural America who don't have time or money for lawyers. Doug volunteered as lead counsel. Sheriff Morales joined as a board advisor. Natalie did a follow-up feature and made us national news again. The donations started rolling in. But the real moment, the one that made everything worth it, came one sunny afternoon when I heard a knock at the ranch gate. I walked out to find a teenage boy standing there, maybe 16, holding a box of canned dog food. He looked nervous. Real nervous. "You Matt Walker?" he asked. "I am." He nodded. "I just wanted to say thank you. My dad's a vet, too. Our HOA was threatening us about his workshop. Said it was unsightly. My dad started drinking again. Said he felt like he didn't belong anywhere anymore." The boy swallowed. His eyes were wet. "Then he saw you and Bear on TV. He stood up to them, and now they're backing off. He smiled last week for the first time in months. So thanks." He handed me the box. "For Bear." He said he's a hero. Bear wagged his tail like he understood every word. I took the box, nodded, and reached out to shake the kid's hand. "Tell your dad I said he's not alone. He never was." That night, I sat under the stars again. Bear curled up next to me, our porch light casting a warm glow across the field where it all began. I thought about every moment from the first HOA letter to the gunshot, the lawsuits and break-ins, the arrests and trials. And then I looked at Bear. His eyes met mine. That look of peace, loyalty, survival. We didn't just fight back. We built something stronger than fences and walls. We built a line no bully could cross. So here's my message to anyone out there who's being pushed, threatened, or harassed by people who think their titles give them power. You are not weak because you want peace. You are not alone because you feel tired. But if they cross your line, threaten your home, your family, your dog, you don't give in. You stand, you fight, and you protect what's yours. Because on this ranch, and in every home like it across America, we don't bow to bullies. We stand at the gate. And if they try to come through, well, they better be ready for the dog and the man behind him. Where are you watching from? If you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare or had a loyal dog protect your family, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to salute our brave pets like Bear, who never gave up.